Some national parks announce themselves with monumental entrance stations and long lines of cars inching forward beneath iconic signs. Yet many of the most popular parks in the United States have quieter approaches, routes that feel less like an arrival and more like a gradual immersion. These aren't secret in the sense of forbidden or hidden from maps. They're secret in the way locals use the word, overlooked, underused, and often more revealing of a park's character than the main gate. Start with Yellowstone, a place so vast and geologically restless that it spills across 3 states. Most visitors enter through West Yellowstone, Montana, aiming straight for Old Faithful. A different story begins in the north, at the Roosevelt Arch in Gardiner, Montana. Built in 1903 and dedicated by President Theodore Roosevelt, the arch is inscribed with a line from the 1872 act that created Yellowstone, "For the benefit and enjoyment of the people." That phrase is more than a slogan here. This entrance is a living timeline. The road follows the Yellowstone River into a landscape shaped by fire, flood, and the park's long, complicated relationship with wildlife management. From Gardiner, the drive to Mammoth Hot Springs is short but dense with meaning. The terraces at Mammoth look like frozen waterfalls, but they're built in real time from travertine, calcium carbonate deposited by hot, mineral-rich water rising through limestone. The colors come from thermophilic microorganisms, each thriving at a particular temperature and chemistry. In winter, steam drifts across the boardwalks while elk wander through the historic fort buildings of Fort Yellowstone, where U.S. Army troops once enforced early park rules before the National Park Service existed. This northern approach also puts you close to the Lamar Valley, often called America's Serengeti, where wolves returned in 1995 after a long absence and reshaped the ecosystem in ways scientists still study, shifting elk behavior, allowing willows and aspens to rebound in some areas, and changing habitat for beavers and birds. Travel tip. The north entrance is open year-round, unlike some other Yellowstone roads that close in winter. If you want Yellowstone's wildlife and geology without the summer crush around the geyser basins, this is one of the most rewarding ways in. Next, consider Yosemite, whose name alone conjures granite cliffs and waterfalls. The park's most famous entrance is on Highway 41 from the south, funneling visitors toward Tunnel View. But there's a subtler approach from the west on Highway 140. The Arch Rock entrance near El Portal. It's not obscure to locals, yet it's often bypassed by travelers who assume the quickest route is always the best. This entrance follows the Merced River Canyon, a corridor that tells Yosemite's human story as much as its geologic one. Long before Yosemite became a national park in 1890, the canyon routes were lifelines for native communities and later for miners, homesteaders, and early tourists. In the mid-19th century, the Mariposa Battalion's violent campaign against indigenous peoples helped set the stage for Yosemite's discovery narrative, a reminder that the park's beauty exists alongside histories of displacement. The Highway 140 approach also passes near the remains of early infrastructure that made tourism possible, from stagecoach routes to the later railroad connection that brought visitors to El Portal. As you climb toward Yosemite Valley, the river's character changes from broad and gentle to fast and boulder-choked, and suddenly the walls tighten and rise. This entrance tends to be lower elevation than the Tioga Road approach from the east, which means it can be a more reliable option in shoulder seasons when snow closes high passes. Practical note: Yosemite traffic can be intense in peak months, and reservation systems may apply depending on the year and season. The quieter feel of Highway 140 won't exempt you from regulations, but it can make the journey feel less like a commute and more like an unfolding landscape. For Zion National Park, The secret entrance is less about a gate and more about a route that changes your entire sense of scale. Most visitors enter from Springdale, Utah, then ride the shuttle into Zion Canyon, where sandstone walls squeeze the sky into a ribbon. A different Zion begins on the east side, along Utah State Route 9, approaching through the Zion-Mount Carmel Tunnel. Completed in 1930, the tunnel was a feat of engineering and a symbol of a new era when roads were designed to carry families into dramatic scenery. It's 1.1 miles long, carved through Navajo sandstone, and its large windows, cut into the canyon wall during construction, were originally used to haul debris out and bring light in. Today, they frame striking views, like natural picture windows overlooking slick rock domes and pinyon juniper slopes. This east side approach introduces Zion's geology in layers. The park is a staircase of rock formations, each recording ancient environments: deserts, coastal plains, and shallow seas. The Navajo sandstone, which forms many of Zion's smooth, pale cliffs, was once a vast dune field similar to parts of the modern Sahara. Wind, time, and mineral cement turned dunes into stone, preserving cross-bedded patterns that still look like ripples frozen mid-motion. Travel tip: vehicles over certain sizes require an escort through the tunnel, and traffic can back up at peak times. But if you time it early or late in the day, the east entrance offers a calmer start and immediate access to lesser crowded trailheads like Canyon Overlook, where a short climb yields a panorama that helps you understand Zion's scale before you ever see the canyon floor. Grand Canyon National Park is so famous that it can feel as if there's only one way to see it: the South Rim. Yet the canyon has multiple personalities, and one of the most surprising approaches is from the east, along Desert View Drive, entering near the tiny community of Tusayan and continuing toward the park's eastern edge. Many visitors rush to Grand Canyon Village and Mather Point, then leave believing they've done the canyon. The eastern approach encourages a slower, more geological reading of the landscape. Desert View is anchored by the Desert View Watchtower, completed in 1932 and designed by architect Mary Coulter. Coulter's work across the Southwest shaped how generations imagined park architecture. The Watchtower is not an ancient structure, but it was inspired by ancestral Puebloan towers, and it contains murals by Hopi artist Fred Cabote that reflect living indigenous cultures rather than a distant past. From this rim, the canyon opens toward the Painted Desert and the confluence of the Colorado River and the Little Colorado River in the distance, a sacred place for several tribes. The light here often has a different quality than at the busier overlooks, and the viewpoints along the drive, like Lipan Point, offer angles that make the canyon's depth easier to comprehend. Technical detail becomes visible. The dark Vishnu schist near the river is nearly 2 billion years old, while the Kaibab limestone at the rim is around 270 million years old. You're looking at an exposed cross-section of time so vast, it strains ordinary language. Travel tip: if you're driving in from the east, say from Page, Arizona or Monument Valley, this is a natural, efficient way to enter, and it spreads your stops across multiple overlooks instead of concentrating your visit in one crowded cluster. Finally, Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the most visited national park in the United States, hides its best introductions in plain sight. Many people arrive via Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and head straight for Cades Cove or Newfound Gap. A quieter, richly textured entry comes from the North Carolina side through the town of Cherokee at the Oconaluftee entrance. This approach is more than a road into a forest. It's an entry into a cultural landscape shaped by the eastern band of Cherokee Indians and by the park's complex origins. Before the park was established in 1934, these mountains were home to Cherokee communities and later to Appalachian settlers. The creation of the park preserved a vast tract of forest, but it also involved land purchases, relocations, and the transformation of working landscapes into protected scenery. Near the Oconaluftee Visitor Center, the Mountain Farm Museum gathers historic buildings, barns, cabins, and outbuildings relocated from around the region to illustrate 19th century farm life. It's a reminder that the Smokies are not only wilderness, but also a place where people raised crops, kept livestock, and built homes adapted to steep terrain and hard winters. The Oconaluftee River often runs clear and fast, and in the fields nearby, elk graze, an animal absent from the Smokies for more than a century before being reintroduced in 2001. Their presence is both a visitor draw and a living experiment in restoration, monitored carefully to balance ecological effects and human safety. This entrance also puts you close to Mingus Mill, a working grist mill that demonstrates how water power turned grain into meal, and it positions you for a climb up to Newfound Gap with a growing sense of elevation. Hardwood coves giving way to spruce fir forests that feel almost boreal. Travel tip. The Smokies are famous for sudden weather shifts. Fog can roll in like a tide, and rain can turn trails slick. Carry layers and treat stream crossings with respect after storms. These 5 approaches share a common advantage. They slow you down. They remind you that a national park isn't just a checklist of viewpoints. It's an intersection of geology, ecology, and human history. The secret is not that these entrances are unknown. It's that they invite a different kind of attention. A stone arch in Yellowstone that speaks in early 20th century civic language. A river canyon route into Yosemite that carries both beauty and hard history. A tunnel in Zion that reveals the park's sandstone anatomy. An eastern rim road at the Grand Canyon that teaches you to read time in layers. A Smokies gateway where living Cherokee culture and Appalachian heritage sit beside rewilding efforts. If you're planning a visit, consider choosing an entrance the way you'd choose the opening chapter of a book. The first pages shape everything that follows. In these parks, the quieter routes often offer the clearest introductions, less crowded, more contextual, and, for many travelers, more memorable than the main gate.